Nyt jatketaan sarjakuvien maailmassa. Vieraana on nimittäin 2 kertaa sarjakuvamaailman Oscar-palkinnon Eisnerin voittanut roopeankan piirtäjä Don Rosa. Welcome and good morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
I have to start with the stories. I heard that you never were really that interested in drawing, but rather on telling stories for people. Is that true?
I'm still not interested in drawing. It's actually tedious. I don't like to draw, but I like to tell stories. Yeah, as a child, I would never, like I think most children do, just sit and draw single pictures. I would only tell myself stories. My father would bring me business ledgers back from work that had blank pages. And I would fill each page with like one giant panel of a story. They'd just be stick figures. I really didn't care about the artwork, but to tell a story, I needed a simple stick figure and word balloons, and I'd fill each one of these books with long, complicated adventure stories. But yeah, drawing. I was using the same characters even into high school, still just doing the comics to amuse myself, but still just stick figures, because it was telling a story that was more interesting to me, and it still is. That's the reason I both write it and draw it. I'm sure it would look much nicer if somebody else drew the thing for me, but I wouldn't be telling the story. It's the writing and the drawing together and the dialogue and all of it is one unit to me, doing comics.
I'll do a short translation. Eli Don Rosa sanoi siinä, että hän ei koskaan itse asiassa pitänyt piirtämisestä nuorempana, eikä pidä vieläkään. Se on hänen mielestään itse asiassa jokseenkin vastenmielistä, mutta hän tykkäsi kertoa tarinoita ja jo pienenä poikana alkoi kertoa tarinoita tikkuukkohahmojen avulla ja sanoi, että piirsi näitä samoja tikkuukkoja aina lukioikään asti ja vaikka moni rakastaa Don Rosan piirroksia, niin hän itse sanoi niistä, että tarinat olisivat varmasti paljon parempia, jos joku muu olisi ne piirtänyt. You started creating your first Uncle Scrooge story, I think, 1986.
That's right, yeah.
What was it about that particular character that captivated you?
Well, it's, of course, Karl Barks' stories that all of us in America grew up with in the 40s through the 60s, and still kids around the world outside of North America are still growing up to. His stories fascinated me just like they did everybody else. He's undoubtedly was the greatest storyteller of the 20th century. And I just always loved the character. I was born into a family that had a construction company, so I knew I was never going to be a cartoonist. My training's in civil engineering. I think any art director can look at my comics and tell that there's a civil engineer's drawing these, not a real cartoonist. But it was always a hobby, collecting comics and drawing comics. And when this little company started up in America, after Disney Comics had disappeared for so many years, a small company of comic fans like myself got the license, and I saw an opportunity to write and draw just one Uncle Scrooge adventure. I dreamt of doing it my entire life, and I thought I was just going to do one. But it's Karl Barks' creations that inspired me, and I just wanted to do that one story, and just ended up doing another, and here I am being interviewed on television in Finland 20 years later.
Eli Don kertoo siinä, kuinka nimenomaan Karl Barksin tarinat olivat ne, jotka kiehtoivat häntä. Hänen mielestään Karl Barks on 1900-luvun suurin tarinan kertoja. Kun sitten vihdoin tarjoutui tilaisuus piirtää näitä tarinoita, niin hän tarttui tilaisuuteen ja ajatteli, että hän ei todellakaan tule tekemään sitä lopun ikäänsä, vaan piirtää vain tämän yhden tarinan roopeankasta, mutta näin siinä on käynyt, että nyt hän istuu täällä Suomen TV:ssä haastateltavana. It really, like you said, it wasn't so obvious that you'll become a professional storyteller or comic artist, and you actually quit drawing in the early 80s.
Yeah,
is that true?
Done your research, yeah. I finally, after I'd gotten married and started a household and had grass to cut and other chores, I realized that in America the people really didn't like the kind of adventure stories with funny humans that I was putting into the fan magazine work for free. You know, it was just a hobby, and I no longer had time for it. So, a period between about 1980, 1985, I put away the old drawing table and the pens. I never thought I'd draw again, but it wasn't until I saw that, like I say, those new Disney comics put out by that small company in Arizona in America that I thought I'd get the utensils out again and just do one more story.
Eli Don kertoi siinä, että 80-luvun alussa hän itse asiassa lopetti piirtämisen kokonaan. Hän ei uskonut, että siitä koskaan tulisi hänelle ammatti, eikä hän ehtinyt oikeastaan sitä harrastaakaan. Tuli vaimo ja perhe ja työkuviot veivät mennessään, ja vasta kunnes hän näki tämän erään pienen kustantamon julkaiseman tarinan Roope Ankasta, hän innostui uudelleen ja ajatteli, että jos vielä yhden tarinan piirtäisi. Well, after that story you've been writing quite a few more stories and written quite a few more stories. Could you draw us something here?
Well,
I would ask you to, tell a story for us, but I think that'll take a bit too long.
No, I don't mind. Frequently when I'm being interviewed, people will say, like we were talking about, show us how you draw Donald Duck. Well, the way I draw Donald Duck is Home Alone, and I draw it very tiny and about that big, and it takes me hours and hours. But I have trained myself to, when I'm doing book signings or at comic conventions, how to draw it quickly and not embarrass myself. But the way to do it is I'll always draw his face looking, or Donald or Scrooge, whoever I'm drawing, looking straight ahead. Start from the... Now, if I was doing this at home, I'd start with the head and build out. But if I'm doing it directly into ink, I have to start with the bill and go backwards to the head. Anyway, it's awfully early in the morning to be drawing like this, but so I'll draw one side of the beak and then try to imitate that on the other side. Then draw another side of the front of the beak. Is this going to be Uncle Scrooge? So he's got glasses. If I was at home, I'd have my engineering tools and make those glasses perfect, but because that's the only art training I have is using engineering tools, and it has to be perfect engineering, otherwise the bridge is going to collapse and thousands of people will perish. So.
Don Rosa kertoi, että kun hän kotona piirtää Akuankan tai Roopeankan, niin hän aloittaa päästä ja piirtää nokan sitten vasta sen jälkeen, mutta silloin kun hänellä ei ole omia insinöörivälineitään mukana, kun hän esiintyy esimerkiksi TV:ssä tai jossain kirjanjulkaisustilaisuuksissa, missä hän piirtää ihmisille, niin silloin hän piirtää nokan aina ensimmäisenä ja on aina itse asiassa hieman häpeissä omista piirustuksistaan, koska piirtää mielestään paljon tarkemmin ja paremmin silloin, kun hänellä on insinöörivälineensä mukana, mutta näppärästi se näyttää käyvän tässä ilman välineitäkin. Me palaamme Don Rosan kanssa noin 8:10 ja katsotaan silloin, minkälainen kuva tästä ei loppujen lopuksi syntyy. We'll come back.